Welcome, everybody, to the Living Consciously television show, coming to you live from our Denver, Colorado studios. We are also streaming on YouTube Live, as well as Hangouts, and at ConsciousEvolutionMedia.com. I'm your host and moderator, Coach Steve Toth, and this network is, I stopped counting after 15,000 shows and over 10 years, but we are keep going strong, and our theme today is how and why to integrate nutrition into our conscious everyday living. And I'm happy to welcome our guest this evening, our guest cast. Her name is Jessica McCluskey Hood. She's joining us somewhere from the East Coast where it's cold and they have lots of snow. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hi. How much snow you got?
Oh, well, we had a couple inches this morning. I'm in Georgia, so.
Oh, okay. So it's not that bad. Okay, it's more like south.
For tomorrow.
Okay. And also, let me introduce you to the rest of our cast, starting with next to Jessica, that would be Linda Dyer, and she's joining us from a continent where these kangaroos are every day running wild. But I'm hearing that today that they're not running wild. Why, Linda?
It's raining.
Okay.
Well, they probably are running wild if I was living in Alice Springs.
Send them all to Las Vegas. They'll be happy there.
Yeah.
All right, which brings us to next to Linda is Nina de Rosa, and she's joining us from, of course, the place where the lights never go out, and maybe kangaroos will start showing up. How are you, Nina?
I'm going out after the show to go and find some kangaroos.
That would be the newest and most coolest attraction in Las Vegas.
I'm going to start running around with the kangaroos.
You could be credited.
Can you catch them? Linda, can you catch them? Are they easy to catch?
Yeah, look, make sure you grab them by the tail, just like someone did in California, because they'll wipe you out if you hit them with the tail.
Okay, they might grab me by the tail, though. What will I do then?
Oh, your lucky day, Nina.
Okay, Jessica. So this theme, of course, the theme for our shows always comes and originates from our guest cast, and it's a very interesting theme because I'm into this health. I became kind of a health nut. It doesn't completely register yet with everybody that's watching, but you should have seen me. I don't know, 3-4 years ago. I probably lost. I don't know. By now, holy smackaroo, almost 60 pounds.
Oh my goodness, we're in the same boat.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, congratulations. I know what that feels like.
So, and Jessica, you somehow also connect nutrition and weight loss to sensual weight loss. Enlighten us about that.
Sure. Well, what's happened is actually over these years, my business is at a pivotal moment. And it's now being changed from sensual weight loss to love your body like a goddess. So the sensual weight loss, and it's kind of all the same thing, it's based on the sensual intuition of a woman. So really diving into the femininity or the feminine energy of a woman. And, this can go for a man, too, a man diving into his masculine energy. What I'm trying to teach women, or what I teach women, is to begin seeing their bodies as sacred temples. And so bridging the gaps between the body and spirituality. And it becomes so much easier to nourish yourself when you see your body as sacred.
Wow, great. My feminine side is attending the show right now, and she is listening.
I didn't know you had one, Steve.
I have one. I have one. I'm happy to publicly announce to everybody out there that I do have a feminine side.
Oh, yeah. How lovely. How exciting for you.
Yeah.
Can I ask you what you do with it? What do you do with it? I'm sorry.
What do I do with my feminine side?
shouldn't do this to me, Steve. You shouldn't do this.
Well, I use it to balance myself, so I'm not just a crazy guy all by itself. You know, I get emotional. I allow myself to cry time to time. I do all the things that the real men out there don't want to do or don't know how to do.
Well, they don't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing is that everybody, man or woman, has a feminine and masculine side, and it's just that I don't think through socialization many men have been encouraged to bring their femininity forward, allow that feminine side. And the feminine side is around the way we take compliments, the way we actually retrieve and give of ourselves. And for even a lot of us women, we've had to learn how to do that. Accept a compliment and absolutely achieve it within ourselves and feel good about who we are rather than voicing outward all the time.
It's funny you bring up that point, Linda, that we always are so reluctant to take a compliment. We always get so sort of awkward and embarrassed and feel not ashamed, but we don't quite know how to react to it. And all it is just to thank you very much and make you feel good, And it's quite simple, but we can't seem to do it.
Well, Nina, and I want to invite you sometimes, maybe in the near future, have your male side and my feminine side to go out.
Well, wouldn't that be wonderful? Steve, you just have no idea what you've just said, because
Jessica's going like, what's the matter with these people?
We're all crazy. Well, I would love my masculine side to come out, and I'd love to see your feminine side.
Okay.
Okay, that's a deal, Steve. We're going to have a show about that. We're going to do that.
Great. All right.
Okay. All right, Jessica. What are you thinking of all this, Jessica?
I love it. No, and just I completely, concur with Linda. The feminine energy is about receiving, and I mean it goes down to our anatomy, the male, sexual anatomy versus the female sexual anatomy, and so. And it's a balance of give and take, and so the feminine energy actually transfers over into food in a very fascinating way, because we've been trained. If we look at all of the dieting and the nutrition systems, and many of them were created by men, and I love men, I love men, but we've been brought up in a very linear, masculine kind of energy around how to eat food, how to regulate foods. There's lots of scales, weighing, counting, measurements, and eat this much food portions, and that's just not how the feminine energy works. So a lot of the times we're failing because we're going by these other standards. The way that a woman or the divine feminine energy reacts or interacts with food is through nourishment, whereas masculine is the yang energy is through nutrition. So nourishment, flow with food. So if you're a woman out there and you find that you like to graze a lot, there's nothing wrong with that with food, and it's so much more about pleasure. Like how can you bring more pleasure into your food, if that makes sense there.
How do you, apart from eating a lovely big box of chocolates?
No.
Why didn't I know that was coming, Nina? Why did I know?
Because you knew it.
I love this concept of I used to binge eat all the time, and I was 60 pounds heavier, and my business is really moving more in the direction of loving your body first. So loving your body like a goddess, loving your body like the divine being that you are. And so the language of the goddess or the god, this can easily transfer over into the divine masculine of men. I'm not trying to limit our viewers here from connecting, but it's love and abundance over fear and lack. So I like to actually bring these energies into our relationships with food. And something that helped me was, eating food out of love. So if I go to a food, and I used to be the person who would, I'd be babysitting back in my early 20s, and I would binge eat on candy. Like I would just go hang out in the pantry while the kids went and did their thing. And I one day hit a point where I no longer stopped myself from doing that, and I just trusted myself. And then I began to ask myself, you know, is this loving? Can I eat this food with love? And from that place, I eventually started to weed out the things that were hurting me, because I just started to learn so much. So transferring love to food is big, and blessing your food is amazing. You know, a lot of people have been taught to pray like this, but I actually like to take my hands and put them over the food like that to transfer the energy to the food. And then the other thing, real quick point here, is abundance with food. So something that I think that keeps people in the binge mode with food and eating food that doesn't serve them is that they limit themselves. So they'll put, you know, they'll say, oh, I can only have that much, or I can only have this bar. Or so what I like to do is put foods that actually nourish me, foods that cause alkalinity in the body, foods that are organic, or, you know, foods that have lots of antioxidants in them, and put a plethora of food around me. And one of my favorite foods, Ninon, to go back to you, is raw chocolate. And I make platters of raw chocolate, and to help me get over my sugar addiction, I just kept the raw chocolate out all day long, and I didn't care how much I ate, as long as I could eat it with love, and as long as I knew it was serving my body and my mind and my spirit, I allowed myself to indulge.
Well, they also say that the chocolate these days are very good for you. Obviously not in a great quantity, but they're saying now the chocolate is really good for your system.
Well, yes, and that, you know, I think that the majority of chocolate that you find in stores is actually still not the best for you. It has, the chocolate has been cooked, and so it has rancid omega-6s in it, I believe, and that, like, hurts your kidneys. So the best chocolate out there is to make your own raw chocolate. So to actually connect with your food is going to be big.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Jessica, isn't it true though that sugar is a bigger enemy of humanity than fat?
Than fat? Yes. I would say yes. That's definitely. I mean, sugar used to be locked up like cocaine was. You know, sugar was something that only the wealthy people had, and
now they're both out there, cocaine and sugar.
Yeah,
they're both out there.
but anyway, yeah. So there, and actually, if you go to my website, sensualweightloss.com, and you sign up for the newsletter, I have recipes, and there are some chocolate recipes in there. Raw chocolate recipes.
I'll find them.
Linda, yes, go ahead, Steve.
So Jessica, how do you what's your internal process? And since we're talking about, you know, Living Consciously TV, we're on the show, and since everything that we do here is about how to live consciously, how did you train yourself, or train your body, your mind, your soul, to be able to identify what's good for you and what isn't?
Oh, you know, if that is a really good question. It was a lot of, I have education. I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and I'm currently at the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. So I'm learning all about the psychological and spiritual relationships we have with food. But, you know, personally, it was what caused me to feel, you know, if something caused me to feel foggy or really emotional, or like I couldn't focus, that was my body speaking to me, you know. And so I stopped, and things that you'll notice, like if you eat raw foods for a while and then you go back, if you try an elimination diet, which I never fully did, well, maybe I did, you'll notice that you feel inflamed, like your skin gets, you know, pudgy, or you may have rashes on your hands or breakouts. So I started to listen to what made me feel really good in my body, what optimized my day. And I really recommend that for everyone. I don't think that this needs to follow a diet. I think we need to move away from diets and back to bio-individuality.
Yeah, because they're actually all just fads.
Yeah,
Just, diets are just designed to to make money, basically. And there's no truth in them.
We all seem to go back when we go on diets. It sort of lasts for a few months, and then we kind of go to one side, and then we gain all the weight back again, and twice as much, and we're in a worse state than we were before. Exactly. So why do we, we get the audience out there or the people out there to get away from this kind of diet and go more into a psychological diet that you've kind of put together?
By giving it a different name, Nina, and I think the word diet, like Jessica was saying, that's half the problem. I think if we call it an eating plan, if people were just to, like Jessica was saying, to go on to an eating plan and have a look and have a feel about what your body is feeling like after you've had something to eat. So I know, like, you know, I was, I think, born with sugar in my mouth. My dad's got a very sweet tooth. You know, and we copy people's behavior. And so I've avoided, when I came off sugar and yeast and lost 10 kilos, which is 2.2 pounds, gotta work it out, about 25 pounds. When I lost that weight just by going off 2 foods that didn't agree with me, I had a hair sample done. And in the hair sample, that's what they discovered. That the blue of the blueberries, the yellow of the egg yolk, and rice and chicken, they were 4 things I was allergic to. It was really that simple. So you can tell when you eat something and your body reacts in some way. So I never need a coffee. I don't need stimulants in any way, shape or form. I was born with natural energy, and I love that. And they say that anybody that needs a coffee is actually imbalanced, because their body should be stimulated just from the minerals in the food, the alkalinity of our system. It's only acid that brings us down. It's like dragging a backpack behind your back, you know.
Beautiful. You know, Linda, what is your background? I didn't catch that. I didn't catch Linda's. Is Linda?
I actually cured myself of lupus, a disease of the immune system. So my background's in fitness, health and fitness, and then I went over to nutrition, and I did that because while I was in the fitness industry, just really doing up to 22 classes a week. Yeah, I was fit. I was dangerous. I was so fit. I was swimming a mile a day for the university. I was playing tennis as well for the university because I could. I had so much energy. But what I didn't realize was that the sodium oxide dismutase that you're born with eventually runs out. And it wasn't until I started, you know, learning about nutrition and more specifically about hormones. I think hormone health, which is basically minerals, that minerals make hormones. And so when I was sick, everybody wanted to give you vitamins. You know, they were like candy. You know, eat, you know, have vitamin C, have this, have that. The insides of my guts came out. You know, vitamin C for some people is just too powerful. But minerals, we can't do anything in this world without minerals. We can't pick up a cup, we can't pick up a shopping bag, we can't do anything. So I learned so much about the body, and I started to, like you say, Jessica, treat it with a lot more respect. And I knew what it was like to be super healthy. I then knew what it was like to be very close to dying. And there was no future in that, so I decided to make a change and say, you know what, I'm walking out of this hospital. I'm not going in the right direction. I'm going to do this myself. And I did it nutritionally, and now I teach other people.
That is so beautiful.
Right.
What was the most prominent thing, Linda, that you remember that really sort of kept you on this sort of, I don't want to say diet because it's not a diet, it kept on this food processing guide that you got yourself onto? What was the most prominent thing that really helped you?
I think the most prominent thing, to be totally honest with you, was that my mum installed in us how important food was. Like, I'm one of 7. There's 9 people in our family. It's like pollution when we all get together. And my mum had lots of really good food, and my dad would say it wouldn't matter what else we went without, we never went without good food. However, when you're doing fitness and all that sort of stuff, and actually, to be honest with you, when I lived in America, my diet went out the window because you guys have the craziest foods.
We do.
And I've symptoms, you know, like pumpkin ice cream and, you know, stuff that we've never even seen before, some of us. And so I found it challenging sometimes when I come to America to actually find decent food because I live so healthily now. However, last time I went, I must admit, we did find some good Thai restaurants and that serve the type of food. Asian food's brilliant. I love it. But for me, I got to really understand the value of minerals and anything that has a high pH, like Jessica was talking about. But also, Nina, there were 4 things. Decide to change.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Believe that you can. Like I walked out of that hospital knowing I was really sick, and I just decided I was going to do it. So I decided I was going to make a change right then. I believed I could, and then I acted on it. So those 2 rotate, like in The Secret. Belief and action rotate. So I said, what action do I need to take? And I went down and I bought whatever books I could that gave me nutritional information on how I could change. And I bought Julie Stafford's Taste of Life, and there was a few others. And I lived, because she'd cured her husband of cancer, I lived on these people's information. But I think the key was expecting. I expected to get well. So I got a photo of me playing representative tennis, and I put it all around the house, and every day I would look at it and say, what have I done today towards getting back to that? And if I've gone off key with my diet, but I influenced, I think, a lot of people, because when my diet changed, when my eating plan changed, my husband lost 3 stone. My son didn't need any puffers for his asthma. You know, other people would come to our place and we ate very, very healthily food. The doctors ignored the fact that I was getting well and said I probably didn't have the disease in the first place because they were yelling at me, you know, you've got to come back here. I said, well, I actually don't.
The last place
Isn't it wonderful that we have the choice? However, I think, to be honest with you, the importance is that you make a decision to change, and that once, as Jessica said, once you go over to a different eating plan, it's a whole different world. You will go beyond whatever you need to go and find the food that suits you, and you will feel when your body's, you'll say, oh my gosh, what did I have last night? Because I'm not feeling as chirpy today. So I know if I don't have my 3 to 5 vegetables every night, my system just isn't the same the next day. Steve, you'd love this. I had kangaroo for dinner last night.
What?
Is that the one I caught on Sunset Boulevard?
And you just said we have crazy food here in America. What are you talking about?
No, I didn't.
We don't eat kangaroos over here.
I never knew you ate kangaroo, not you personally, but I never knew that they really ate that in Australia. I thought they were just very happy animals that never got killed to be eaten.
That's
No,
what
they have to be culled. They have to be culled because they actually are prolific. But kangaroo meat actually has very, very little fat on it, as you can imagine. They're bouncing all around the place, and that's why it's become quite trendy to eat.
Food that's constantly in shape. How cool is that?
Food for less.
So hey, guess what? What's interesting is what was just coming to me is, and I thank you for sharing that story. That's, I think, very valuable to our viewers. And I have a similar story, but I don't want to take a lot of time to explain that. But I cured myself from diabetes 2, and the reason I did it is because, number one, I want to live. Number two, I didn't want to get diabetes 1 because I know what it's like. My second wife had diabetes 1, and it's a pretty awful disease. And number three, I wanted to be healthy. And what came to me just now, as you, Linda, was describing your story, is that from my own experience, I can tell and share that being conscious automatically comes with our ability to choose the right foods to eat.
Absolutely.
And being unconscious automatically comes with that we will eat anything and everything. Mm-hmm. And we pay zero attention. Do you know how I know? Because I used to do that. I didn't care it didn't even come up for me what am I eating and what it's doing to me. That question didn't register.
So what made you turn around, Steve? Why did you suddenly decide? Because I know you've been trying to, lose this weight for some time, and now you seem to have got a hold on it. You seem to realize what gave you, or what was that big turn? Was it the diabetes? You didn't want diabetes 1, was that it?
Well, it started with the fact that I was diagnosed with diabetes 2, and that that I kept looking at myself and I'm going like, oh wow, are you kidding me? I am doing this network called Living Consciously, and I'm not an example of living consciously. What the heck is wrong with that picture? Like, I'm not walking the talk. Oh my God! It just dawned on me one day that it just is not acceptable.
That's funny. That's quite. And then also you, Jessica, you also suddenly decided to lose your weight. And the reason I'm asking this question is there's so many people out there that, they kind of give up and they keep giving up, and then they have this also awful depression, and then they just don't care and they say there's enough larger people out there, so I'll just mix in with them and nobody will really notice me. So
But I think, Nina, and I think some of it comes from ignorance. I don't know that people do anything like sometimes on purpose. I think, like when I was eating what I wanted and training a mile a day, swimming and playing tennis, at a championship level, and I could have been a professional tennis player, cricket player, whatever I wanted. But I had no idea that my sodium oxide dismutase, my antioxidants, were wearing out. Who taught us that? My parents don't. So it's a case of when you're ignorant, you carry on because you think you can, until one day something happens. And I think what happens is that we start to get some warnings, and one day we pay attention to the warnings. Like Steve paid attention when he got a reading for diabetes 2, and I know that's reversible, so I knew that he could do that. For me, the warnings were things like cramping. I mean, I don't think the average person out there realizes that a cramp is simply a magnesium deficiency. So imagine if we were to get an indicator and know from that minute, rather than have years and years of cramping, because nobody ever taught us that all we needed was to put a little bit more magnesium in our diet. And there's so many ways. We can actually hop in a bath with it. We can put it in our mouth. We can, there's so many ways of taking it or having it in our diet. I wouldn't have known if I hadn't gone off and on.
Sorry, Steve?
Sorry?
Linda, do kangaroos have magnesium in them?
Who cares?
Just an inquiring mind.
You're going to start eating kangaroo, Steve?
They just don't have fat. They just don't have fat in their meat, so they're a good, nice, healthy meat if you're going to have meat.
But I've also had a lot of all of you talking about exercise, and we seem to have forgotten. We're talking about food, which is really what we need, but also exercise is very important. And I was listening to you, Linda, that you've exercised a lot, and I know that Steve was exercising. So a lot to do with your diet and what you eat is also to do with exercising, and I think that's also very important.
Definitely.
Jessica.
Yes. Oh, well, I actually am a yoga instructor as well, and prior to, and I want to pause for 1 second and come back to this 1 second. So, in terms of like what makes us change, what makes us go into this shift of honoring our body as a temple, I think that one big cause is wanting to feel good, wanting elevated energy. This is a big thing. But then also, in the case of Steve, he had a purpose. He already knew his purpose. So we're either refining our bodies to hear our purpose, or we already know our purpose and we're trying to eat and care for our bodies in a way that elicits alignment. And so I felt like that was a very fascinating point to make. For me, and now I'll go back to the movement piece, what led me down this path was that I knew I could feel inside of me I wasn't honoring my truth. And I actually took Adderall for 7 years, which is an amphetamine. It's pretty much speed. I was told I had an eating disorder, and I was told that I had ADD because I wanted to be tested. And I went to a private school, and I was making like B's and C's, a couple A's, and I wanted straight A's because I was a perfectionist. Because that's what we're trained to do in this society, in a Western society. It's perfectionism and speed and like go, 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 go. So I was on that for 7 years, and then there was a point inside of me where I was just like, oh, I can't take it, because it was shutting down my appetite. So it was perfect for a girl who had eating disorder, body image issues. And I just listened to my body. I knew, like Linda was saying, I was like, I can heal this, and I don't want to be, use this medication as my crutch. And I actually exercised a lot during that time. I would use, when my adrenal glands were probably shot, I would just take an Adderall and or sip an energy drink or a Starbucks, and I would run, I would go and numb myself more on an elliptical trainer. And I was not present or engaged with my body. I only did that because I thought I had to do that in order to be thin. It was I was avoiding the battle. I was trying to, there are a lot of people, I love this concept. Oh, it's false positive. So there are a lot of people out there who are running around and they look a certain way. They look like they've got warriors' bodies, or they're really thin and they're models, but they've never fought an inner battle. They're just a surface, like a casing of a body, and they don't have the inner wisdom. So I was one of those people, and I did all the things to keep me in that position and in that space. And then after I came off of Adderall, I gained 50 pounds in 3 months, which was I went all the way to the other side of the pendulum. I was depressed. I felt isolated. I felt so alone. I was exhausted. I could not even exercise. Like, to go and be on a treadmill for 10 minutes was hell. It was so hard for me. And then after a year of that, I was doing a little bit of yoga, and I just started to show up because I knew that it was better than nothing. And I started to really be gentle with my body. And instead of like judging myself and pushing myself and trying to fit into a cookie mold or a cookie cutter mold, I listened. And I would be the girl in yoga I would literally lie down on the ground in Shavasana for half an hour in the class because I just wanted to be there and I wanted to honor my body. And so, I think that a lot of people become apprehensive with moving their bodies because they think they want to see instant results. And if they don't see the instant results, then they think that they're failing. And it's got to be a lifelong relationship, and changing. It needs to change throughout your life. And so something that keeps me engaged with my movement and something that I teach to all of the ladies I work with is having 3 types of movement. Most always there's something very yin. So very yin energy would be like yoga or swimming, something that's meditative but you're still, moving your body. And it's very gentle and at your own pace. It's flowy. And then maybe something a little bit more yang, maybe something like kickboxing. Or for me, I really love the barre classes. I don't know if you've heard of barre, but it's ballet exercises, or Pilates could even be it. So getting something more intense, or maybe it's running, or maybe, it's playing tennis or something like that. And then the third piece for my movement tip is being in nature. I think it is so important to use nature as a compass, like a way to reset ourselves. We spend so much time inside, and in gyms, and I think it's so important to go and just walk. That's what I started to do in the beginning. I just would go and walk. I didn't care. I didn't want to calculate anything. I would look at the trees. I would walk as slow as I wanted to. And now I love barefoot walking, so earthing. So you walk with your bare feet on a trail. It doesn't really make sense to do that on cement. But anyways, so those are my tips there. Yeah.
Okay, great. So here's the thing that I would like to get your feedback on. So anybody can go to their doctor these days and tell their doctor that they are really fed up the way they look and they're ready to make a change. And the doctor will say, and I'm pretty certain that this is going to happen just about the same way everywhere people go. And the doctor will say, okay, well, all you got to do is get on a diet and get some exercise. Mm-hmm. And that's the prescription. And my experience tells me that that's not enough. Just getting on a diet and just getting exercise is not enough.
Oh, no, not at all. Because the impetus behind the issue is not just from the food or from the lack of exercise. It's something much deeper. A health coach is always useful for that. Health coaches are wonderful. Linda,
So this is all coming within. This is all coming within your mind, your body, your brain, your actions of who you are, what you want to be, and it's a challenge to yourself actually of what do I want to look like? What do I want to be? Do I want to wear male makeup and look prettier, or do I want to lose this weight and look prettier? Do I want to? So it's really up to you how you do it and what you want to do. Actually, it's making your own mind up and not listening to other people.
right.
And it's very individual. You know, what may suit me may not suit somebody else. Like I remember going to yoga classes, and I would run at 100 miles an hour to get to the class. You know, up to the class, and then he'd say, "Let's do the breathing. Breathe in," and then I'm thinking, when's he going to get me to breathe out? I mean, you know, and I'm going on the side, you know, because I couldn't do the breathing that slow.
Well, you were probably
and then at the end of the class,
running there.
and then at the end of that was my life. Everything was full on. It was chung, chung, chung. And at the end of the class, he'd go, "We'll just wait for Linda to wake up." So it was hyperactive or dead. You know, get there. And so yoga really suits type A blood groups. Whereas for me, walking, I get up of a morning and I'm out. I take my minerals and I'm down the beach. And I walk for 45 minutes every single morning, and I don't care what else I've got on that day. That happens in my life. And then a couple of days a week I do aqua fitness, which is my powerhouse exercises where we use weights in the water, the whole bit. And I love that.
You just hit on something.
Being a type O.
Yeah, you just hit on something, Linda. You said you didn't care what happened during the day, what was going on. You are going to take that walk. And I think that's something that's very, very important, that we suddenly say, well, no, I've got a 10 o'clock appointment, it's 5 and 6 in the morning, and I'm not going to make it. But you don't care. You just go out there and do it and take the consequences after. I think that's a big way of making your mind up and actually doing it.
Well, and that's how life.
Well, once you start, Nita, yeah, you've got that adrenaline going. Yeah, and you want to keep that going.
And that's a great way to be empowered. You know, we live a lot of lives, or many people live their lives thinking, oh, I can't do that because I have to go to work, or I can't do this. But, you know, when our health is asking us to wake up to what we really want in life and to make ourselves a priority and to stop living in this paradigm where we think that, you know, this is how it goes and I'm just going to work, you know, 10 hours a day. You don't have to live that way. And people are scared to make big shifts, but the most beautiful thing happens when you honor your body as a temple and you start living in alignment and saying, this is a priority to me. This walk on the beach is a huge priority. Eating organic is a huge priority, or you know, spending time with my family, or loving what I do, and you actually take action in that, life supports you. I mean, synchronicities pop up, you know, left and right. I've seen it happen so many times.
And actually what you're saying is also is if you do take that time, which you said, Linda, to go out and walk, you probably don't have to work those 10 hours a day because you won't be dragging. You will feel very good, and you'll only have to work the 8 hours or 6 hours, and it won't take you as long because you're going to actually feel good within and get it done twice as fast. Would that be
well, absolutely. Yeah. You do. You're much more efficient in everything that you want to do, but you just, like Jessica was saying, you honor your body and you start saying, you know what, like maybe Friday afternoon, I'll have what we call a nanny nap, whatever. And it's interesting that
Linda is a cat. I
feel like
Linda is a cat nap.
You certainly both have your bells on, for sure. Okay.
Back to the bell. Yes. Okay.
So hang on for a second. I got to go back 5 minutes ago because I don't feel that I have effectively made a difference in the conversation.
That's because you're a man and you're outnumbered.
No, well, that could be. But that's fine. But here's the thing. So let me give it a try one more time, shall I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
So it seems to me that what everybody is saying, and it's all in the doing, is there is some solution, like especially Americans. I'm going to pick on us. Americans have this thing that there's got to be something that I could be doing so that I can fix my problem. And what what the message that I wanted to give is stop looking outside for a tool or something to do, because it's not in the do, it's not in the tool, although those things are wonderful and they will be helpful. But what comes before all of that is our beingness, who we are being.
Yes.
What do you think about that, Jessica?
Oh, yes. No, I mean, it's just the answer, like the weight or the health issue or whatever it is, it's your gift. It's a gift to you. It's a gift to help you wake up to being here right now and starting
Right.
to live more in love. I mean, that's so the truth. You know, I look back on the journey I went on with learning to love my body again and like facing my biggest fear of having extra weight on my body. It gave me so much. But you have to learn to accept yourself first, you know, and you have to wake up and say, you know what, life is not going to happen later. It's going to happen right now. And if you're in something or you're telling yourself something that's, if you're in a toxic relationship or if you're telling yourself nasty thoughts every day, that's, you know, or you're at a job that's just like, ugh, you know, you can't take it, and you're staying there waiting for something big sign to happen. The big sign is for you to say yes now, and that all that's body. So you have to say, yeah.
Jessica, what happened to your ADD? Because I know a lot about it because I did a lot of interviewing with kids in schools and everything. There's a lot of ADD and ADHD. But what happened to your ADD? Because I know you had to take all those pills, which the pills actually are a downer. So then when you were down, you had to try to bring yourself back up again. So you had this kind of forever struggle. But how did you get rid of the ADD, or do you still take medication?
No, I don't think I ever had ADD. I don't even know if I really believe in it.
See, a majority of people don't. See, I know that. A majority of children do not have ADD. They do not.
For me, it was the eating disorder because I didn't eat food and it was very hard for me to focus. And but I took 20 milligrams of Adderall every day, very small amount. But I eat foods. But you know, if I were to sit down and eat a huge loaf of bread with, you know, frosting or something, I would space out. My body does not tolerate like gluten. I will totally, and that's what a lot of those kids are dealing with. Their parents are feeding them absolute rubbish.
Well, Coca-Colas and all this stuff with so much sugar in it.
That's
it blends them up. Yeah.
And they're living, and a lot of our, you know, a lot of our kids, I know it's getting better, but they're being raised by people, or not raised at school. They're just not receiving. A lot of them are not receiving the love and attention they need. And I remember learning about this in school. And, you know, attention deficit disorder can be because they're not receiving enough attention from their parents.
And it all comes back to the parents.
Jessica, it's exactly what happened. I used to run sports programs for children in the school holidays. I did it for 14 years. So I had hundreds and hundreds of kids come through those programs. And one little boy came and he was a real little muscly kid. He had so much energy. He reminded me of myself. Like he's not naughty, but he had a lot of energy. You know, he'd jump into the swimming pool or he'd go and play tennis, and he didn't hurt anybody. He just had so much energy. And one day he walked in, and I swear he looked like Linus. He had a bit of material hanging out of his mouth. His thumb was in his mouth, and he was hardly moving his feet. And I went, oh, no, they've put him on Ritalin.
No.
I could tell straight away that the parents didn't like his energy. And now, do you know, within 2 days of them doing that, one night they forgot to come and pick him up. It was like they were parents that they both had a good job. They both wanted to get, you know, let's earn all this money so we can retire early. And this kid was a problem for them because he had this natural energy that was too much for them. So they stuck him on Ritalin. I drove him home and I kept thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? I ended up saying to myself, I don't think you should say anything because it may not be appropriate. And I gave him the biggest hug. I just hugged him and opened the door and let him go. And I said, I'll see you tomorrow, sweetie. And I just said from that on, no parent will be able to bring Ritalin to my sports camp because I will refuse. And I learned how to take kids off Ritalin, and 26 kids today are off Ritalin because I refused for them to have it. I changed their diets immediately. I worked with the parents, and within 3 days, they no longer had ADHD. They were all 100% magnesium deficient. When you do a hair sample, they're magnesium deficient. You give them magnesium, an antioxidant, and a krill oil, and those kids are no longer. It's not a disease. It was just a decision that 500 psychiatrists decided at a convention. Yeah. So when you study it, it's easy to help people get through it and around it. And again, it comes back to nutrition and being in touch with their bodies and allowing the parents to teach them that journey as well.
What they feed them and what they give them to eat, I think, is the most important thing. Because whatever they give them to eat, that goes in their bodies, and that creates who they are and what they are.
But also, it's a bit more than that, Ninon, because let's say, like, I'm one of 7. So imagine the 7th child from my mother. He wouldn't have had much of a great start because she can only give him what she's got left in her body. So what was Mum eating before the child was born? It does go back a little bit before, like one woman said she craved chips and fish when her baby was being born. Now her little girl, she can't stop feeding her chips. And I thought, well, yes, you can. But anyway, it's like, what nutrition were we born with? And then, understanding that if you're the 7th child or the 5th child, you're going to have a few less minerals than the other children. So I would be definitely putting 3 milligrams of minerals even in your bottle of milk or even in an eyedropper as a baby growing up, and starting them from this mineral.
Very fascinating. Yeah.
So Steve,
It has got fired up. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you don't feel left out now, do you? We've sort of evolved you. Do you have any more questions you'd like to ask as a man of what we're talking about?
Well, the question, the question I actually have is for you, Ninon, because I know you a little bit, and somehow you have a way, and I don't know what that is. Maybe you can let everybody in on it. But how do you somehow you're in control of food? Food is not in control of you. How do you do it?
I think it's probably the way we were brought up. It has a lot to do with when you're a child and what you're given as a child, and also, as you were saying, Jessica, what you eat as a mother before, or what you were saying, Linda, is what you eat before that child is born. We came from a very healthy. My mother was a very healthy regarding food. My mother never saw doctors. We never went into the sympathy side of life of. It was never mentioned about a diet. It was never mentioned whether we would have candy or not, because we just didn't, and occasionally we would. But we always ate very nutritiously, but we always also had a lot of fresh vegetables. But food has never been a big thing for me. It's always been, and it's funny, someone was talking to me the other day about it, and they said, well, Ninon, you always look so healthy, and you look so good, and you don't get cold, you don't get sick. And they said, well, do you watch what you eat? I do not watch what I eat. And but I don't eat any food from a fast food. I don't go any fast food. Very rarely do I eat French fries. Hamburgers, I can't stand the grease. Bread, I love bread, but I have kind of cut that out because my mother made a homemade bread every single day. So that was also something different. So I've always had this sort of nutritional side of me, but really never kind of bothered about it. But I think it's within my brain and within me of what food I buy, of where I'll go to in a supermarket. And I come and immediately go to the fruit department and the vegetable department and also get all that stuff. So I think it's kind of, for me, it's mind over matter. It's never really a diet, and if I feel like having candy, I will. But fortunately, I never really feel that much for it. And I can't say it's a controlled thing, but at the same time, I think it's a controlled thing of how I was brought up and how I really know that particular food, no, it's not really good for you, so don't have it. So another great thing to do is to cut your mind. And it's like when someone's arguing with you, that's not your argument, that's their argument. So don't get involved in something that's not yours. So I don't get myself involved in food that I don't want, or anything that aggravates me, or anything that puts me into a place of negativity. Because as you know, Steve, I'm one of these very positive people and sort of go in that direction because I see it's happier for my body.
Yeah.
I think the state of mind of taking on other people's stuff, and I just personally do not do that. And that's with food, that's with conversation, that's with friends, it's with everything. And I can't say I choose my friends, but probably I do. If someone's negative and I back off, and it's not that they're a bad person, I just don't like the way they are or the way they say things. So I back off a lot of stuff and I go into a direction of where I'm comfortable and where I'm the happiest. And I happen to love being happy. That's just where I'm at. And as you've all heard through the conversation, that I actually, I do a lot of jokes and I make people laugh. It's like somebody will say, you know, at the checkout counter, they say, "How are you doing?" And I look at them and I said, "I'm doing whoever I can." And the first reaction you get is everybody starts to laugh. So what have I done? I've created laughter.
Yes, that's so important. See, Ninan, I just see you as not having a fixation on food because you're happy, because you're in flow, you know, you're accessing your highest self. I mean, look at all that you've done. You know, you're living in alignment, and I think that a lot of people are scared of doing that because it means going past your comfort zone in life, and so they numb it out with food or disease. And it's amazing. We attract certain situations to ourselves, you know, even disease. Like everything is happening for us, and I think that that's something that people really need to grasp onto instead of holding on to victimhood, in order to live more from a place of love, you know. And when you're in love with life, there's none of that banter going on in the back of your head around food.
And you don't have to argue. If someone's arguing, and I learned this from my husband, because he would suddenly, for some unknown reason, suddenly flare up about something, and I'd walk into the room, he'd start yelling and screaming, and I thought, what's going on? I would walk out. Yeah. I did not take on his conversation. Well, it was a conversation, he was screaming and yelling. I would walk out, and after two or three times of me doing this, he would say, "Why do you keep walking out?" And I would say to him, well, if I say anything, I might say something I don't want. But I said, you're not going to be listening to me, number one. Number two, I have no idea why you're mad at me. And I said, I will do one of two things. I said, I will either apologize or explain of what you're mad at. As it so happened, it was nothing ever to do with me. It was something else completely different. But I was the one to pick on. So I think sometimes we have to realize, and as you said at the very beginning of the program, Jessica, that we've got to love ourselves and we've got to think of ourselves as this beautiful person, this beautiful thing, and don't take on what other people do. And just because somebody else goes and buys French fries, it doesn't mean to say you have to have the French fries. You can say no. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to do that.
Something bigger, right? Saying no.
So it doesn't matter. You don't have to follow other people. I think you can, well, I don't think, I know you can have an opinion. And don't be afraid of being who you are. And don't think that, oh, I've got to be like them because otherwise they won't like me. So if they don't like you, they don't like you. Big deal. Go and find somebody else that does. You know, and it might be a cat, it might be a kangaroo, I don't know. I'm going to get friendly with a kangaroo on Las Vegas Boulevard. See, I made you laugh, Steve. That's the idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I'm remembering is, you see, you and I hung out.
Yes, we have.
You know, we know each other now for 3 years. Can you believe that? But the first year, so you knew me before I had the diabetes.
Yes, I did.
And I specifically remember a couple of times. I mean, we ate out a lot more than just twice. But there's two times I remember. One is when we were in an Indian restaurant and I picked out. Number two is when I took you to a Chinese restaurant and I again picked out, and you didn't. And I noticed that you didn't, but I was too busy picking out. So I remember at the Chinese restaurant after I had to go to bed because I couldn't deal with myself.
And I think the reason you couldn't, the reason I didn't interrupt was, number one, I'm polite and I'm from England and my mother told me to be polite, but that really wasn't it. What it was that, and I've seen it with so many men do this, you sort of get somewhere and you can sit there and they always say, and Jessica, you know this, let the lady order first. Well, Steve had no intention of letting a lady order first. So I stood there and so I thought, well, if he's ordering, he ordered enough food for 100 people. So I thought, well, there's no need for me to order anything here. And I'm pretty sure I can pick something out in this. And I have to remark on both issues, Steve. The Indian issue was quite funny because he had asked me quite a few questions, and I had answered it on one of them, which was the honest truth of the answer. He got really mad at me, which was fine, and I was expecting that. But the Chinese food, it was like he just wanted to eat and eat, and I'm looking at him thinking, why? You don't need all this food. I think it was. I don't know what was it? Why did you do that? Because a lot of people do that. But I let the man order. Go ahead, you order. I'm just standing there.
Not only that, I started to eat yours.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And you got really pissed. What are you doing?
Yes, everything he can see. But, all right, Jessica, I'm going to ask you a question on this. I want to ask Jessica a question on this. Jessica, so he's gone in there, he's being the man, he's ordering everything, I'm being polite-ish, and we sit down, he eats all his stuff. What made him do that, and why was it? Is it insecurity? Was it because he was really hungry? Couldn't have been that hungry.
It could have just been wanting, I would have to know what was going on in his life at that point. Was he really stressed? Was he?
Well, no, I can actually let you in on this, and I'm sure that Ninon can relate to this. So, Ninon is European, so am I.
Uh-huh.
The way I grew up is every time we got together with anybody, and that could be family, friends, whatever, even strangers, it was always within 2 minutes. There's drinking, there's smoking, and there's eating.
Yes, absolutely. There's a whole measure.
It is just the way my world was as I grew up, and it kind of stuck with me throughout life. Now, I was really skinny when I was young. I remember when I got married at 26, I had a 28 waist. So, but it finally caught up with me. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I
could tell.
And Nina actually saw me probably at the pinnacle. Don't you just feel lovely? You saw me at the pinnacle of that whole thing just before I got sick. I was probably already sick when you were having these experiences with me. I just didn't know.
It was literally, we came home and it was about 8:30, 9 o'clock. It was about 9 o'clock, and he immediately went into his bed and he went fast asleep. And I thought, oh, great company you are. Okay, I'll go with his life.
I just couldn't deal with myself. Oh my God, it was just absolutely. And I remember throughout my life that this has happened before when I went out and had a big steak or something like that, and afterwards I had to go find a place to lay down because I couldn't be with myself.
And sometimes, we have to have those experiences of reaching that point, in order to know the difference. Sorry, Linda, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say there's a couple of things that come up for me. I used to take on international students, and I had a Mexican boy, and when he was with me on his own, he was fine. He ate a lot, but he was fine. And then some other students came into the house, and I saw him start to move his food to one side of the plate and put more on. And I understand that is poverty mentality. It's like I may miss out. That's one side of it. And it also can show up in people's pantries where they've got way more food than they could ever eat in a lifetime in the pantry, and they end up throwing half of it out because of the due date, because it's poverty mentality. Some of our parents did it after the war because food was not that plentiful. So they gathered what they could, and that habit. The other thing is that when you've got parasites in your bowel and in your digestive system, then it will encourage you to eat more parasitic type food. So all your white potatoes, white rices, your sugars, your yeasts, all those foods are, the parasites love it. And so you get what they call hunger pains, and it's not a hunger pain. It's the parasite saying, give me more, give me more, give me more. So Steve's going on a picnic for the parasites.
That's why I totally disagree when people say that the reason why they're eating is because they're hungry. I don't think that has anything to do with anything. The fact that you feel hungry not necessarily mean that you have to eat or that's what you're supposed to do.
I know we're coming to the close of the program. I want to ask you one quick question, Jessica. If somebody wants to clean their body out, and just to give yourself a cleansing all the way through, what is the best way to do that, or do you disagree with it?
Great idea. I would just go with a nice. I mean, there are so many ways to do it, but if you want to start lightly, I would just start adding in, like maybe do even a 3-day fruit and vegetable cleanse, something like where you're just...
Oh, great, Jessica. I was just going to suggest that. It's perfect.
Great.
3-day fruit and vegetables. That's exactly what I do too. Yeah.
It's funny you should say that, Jessica, because my mother and father, they used to go on a grape diet. I can't do grapes because something funny happens to my system. I suddenly get all, I don't know, I'm not allergic to them, but I can't eat that many. But my mom and dad would do that. They'd have 2 or 3 days of just grapes, and they were healthy people.
I bet, yes. So just, and if you need something that is really interesting, a grape, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, they would eat just grapes, and I thought it was crazy personally, but but it's sure. My mother lived to 92 and never saw a doctor.
Right. Oh well, good. That's really
something in this old way of living, the old time and the old way they used to live. But now we've got so many pesticides and so much stuff in food that I think we have to be careful of that as well. There is a rising of, we are waking up, so there is definitely a rising. And, I'm always happy to invite people to have a one-on-one session with me. And you can find my information at sensualweightloss.com. So if you want to have a conversation about, what's a great way to cleanse, that's what you're welcome to email me there. But
So before we go out, which is going to be in a moment, I just got to share one thing about what happened yesterday. Yesterday, one of my roommates brought home a whole bunch of mango drinks. He knows that I love mango. So he put some more in the refrigerator, and he invited me to drink it. And I take one out, look at the bottle. The very first I do, which is I never used to do this before, I turn it over and look at the label. Sugar content, 36 milligrams. I go, dude, do you know how much sugar is in a little sugar cube? That would 36 grams. That would be 2 grams. So how many sugar cubes is that? That's 18. 17, 18. 18 sugar cubes is in this 1 liter bottle of mango drink. I said, I will not drink this if this was the last thing that was available to drink.
At least Steve.
Good for you, Steve.
Yeah, Steve, you've taught yourself to read the bottles or read the packages just to make sure for the fat content and the sugar content. Just for those 2 things is beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, hey, I think this was incredible. We all have come alive multiple times. You ladies, goddesses, have come alive one time that I didn't feel that I should even try to interrupt. So I just yielded, as the Englishman does in court. And I didn't feel guilty about it. It just felt it was flowing just perfectly.
That's because you feel secure.
Thank you for being you and showing yourself on the program as you, which is fantastic. We don't ask for much. Thank you very much, Jessica, for being here. I thoroughly enjoyed you, and I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody that you were absolutely fantastic. You are very knowledgeable, and you definitely walk the talk, because just look at you.
Oh, thank you.
All we have to do is look at you, and there you are. You're a shining example of what it's like when you pay attention to what you put in your body, your temple. So thank you very much. I felt really good with the program. And make sure that everybody goes to our YouTube channel and keep watching these shows, because the more you watch them, the sooner they'll become available for public broadcasting. Otherwise, keep coming back every Tuesday evening. This program is on always at the same time, 9 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening, and I'm looking forward to another snowstorm tomorrow. I don't know about you, but that's what's coming to Denver.
Oh, thank you. Much love, everyone.
Wrap up.
See you guys next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.